G'day guys and gal. Guilliman returning when he did was pretty clutch for the Imperium. Like if he didn't come back when he did, Terra would have fallen to a Khornite invasion and the Imperium would have been massacred from all sides. While the big blue man is universally recognized as arguably the greatest choice of Loyalist Primarch to return in terms of everything not going to shit, it does beg the question, what if one of his other Loyalist brothers returned instead of him? Would they have been able to save Terra from Khorne, initiate the Indomitus Crusade, and put the Imperium back on track as the dominant force in the galaxy? Or would they have failed to adapt to the horrors of 40k, giving mankind one last boost before being forever crushed? Before we get started, summer is upon me and like 5% of you as well, but we're all in this together, so it's time to stop fluffing about and actually get your diet dialed in. The issue is that dialing in a diet can be a time-consuming, expensive, and not particularly yummy thing to do. So to counter all those negatives, I've partnered up with HelloFresh for this video. HelloFresh is a company I've been a customer of for years, even before they first reached out. Each of these pieces of paper represents 2 meals I've eaten, and I cannot recommend it enough. Whether I've been cutting to make weight for a jiu-jitsu competition or bulking over winter to put on some mass, I've done it all with HelloFresh, as you can choose which meals you would like each week, ensuring you never get sick of them and you can tailor it to your health goals. You want to get big? Choose high calorie, high protein. You want to cut? Choose high protein, low fat, low cal. Signing up to HelloFresh has honestly been one of the best things I've ever done for myself. I literally cannot recommend it enough, and by using my link and code POGMAJORFREE, you'll get a free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. Lucky bastards, I wish I got that code when I started. Cheers to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over how each Loyalist Primarch would react to the current setting and what they would do. We will assume that upon awakening, they would immediately go to Terra to speak with the Emperor, just like G-Man did. Let's get into it. The cool thing about the Lion's return is that it actually has already happened, so we literally know exactly what he would do as he literally did it. However, the Lion woke up on the shithole side of the galaxy and had no clear path to Terra, hence he took upon the role of protector and immediately went around to local worlds, saving them from chaos invasions, gathering his fallen, now risen Dark Angels to him, and clapping a spicy Chaos Lord. Basically, he declared his entire purpose to be the protection of the Imperium and the destruction of chaos. In Guilliman's shoes, he probably would do a lot of the same thing, as he was a highly organized, tactically and logistically brilliant Primarch. The defense of Terra against Khorne, the purging of the High Lords, and the reclamation of Imperium Sanctus via the Indomitus Crusade would all be very realistic for the Lion to achieve. There's also a very real chance he would wield both the Emperor's sword and shield, making him a fucking beast. If he fought Mortarion instead of Guilliman, he probably would have straight up won, as he literally kicked a juiced up Angron's ass recently. Overall, the story would follow a similar path, with slightly less logistics and a fair bit more ass kicking. Jagadai Khan returning instead of Guilliman would be pretty fucking rogue, not gonna lie. The White Scars are not a big chapter, nor do they have many successors, with the Khan never really been seen as much as a legendary hero of old as his brothers like Sanguinius the Lion or Guilliman. He would save Terra from Khorne, but he would have really no interest in reforming the High Lords or undertaking the mother of all logistical tasks in the form of the Indomitus Crusade. Since the Khan has also likely been a prisoner in the webway during the last 10,000 years, he also wouldn't have had this massive character arc or power up. Most likely he would quickly strike out, attacking Chaos Force after Chaos Force and helping to slowly push them back and reclaim Imperium Sanctus. However, it would take him a lot longer than Guilliman and may fall apart when Mortarion attacks Ultramar. Obviously, Jagadai would go fight him due to their old rivalry, which will leave Imperium Sanctus once again in turmoil. With the arrival of the Silent King and High Fleet Leviathan, the Khan would be overwhelmed and the Imperium would most likely fall. Rust would be a spicy one to return, especially since the Rust we knew and sometimes loved and sometimes hated would be very different from the Rust who had just spent 10,000 years wandering the warp and lamenting his mistakes. He also may have gone down the path of Korax, embracing his inner warp power and becoming an absolute juggernaut. Khorne would have no chance on Terra with Rust there. Rust would also be quite impatient to strike out at the traitors, but would know that he couldn't just fucking send it straight away. As such, he would gather his own smaller version of the Indomitus Crusade and would likely purge the High Lords due to easily sensing their ambition and unreliability. Then he would storm forth in a tide of claws and fang, massacring the tits out of the chaotic force in Imperium Sanctus. Russ is also a significantly better fighter than Guilliman, so he would be able to take down Mortarion and Magnus. The lack of logistical prowess would be made up in sheer ferocity, however it's unclear if that ferocity would be enough for when Leviathan and the Silent King arrived. Russ would definitely take a more hands-on approach to the battles. Most likely he would try and confront and kill Abaddon directly, something he wouldn't have much issue with. Overall, this actually could work out, especially if he holds on long enough for the line to return and manage the more logistical macro part of reconquering a galaxy. Now for Rogali Dornally. Ooh wee, this would be a cranky boy to return and actually a pretty awesome Primarch for the Imperium. Dorn has had his ups and downs, learning from each. Overall, his organizational prowess was very similar to Guilliman's, as Rogal was technically in command of the Imperium's armies during the Horus Heresy. After saving Terra, he would embark on his own crusade, one that would be slightly slower, but would result in a shit ton more consolidation. He would look at the Imperium Sanctus as one big fortress and begin plugging the gaps, putting a lot of emphasis on worlds like Vigilus in order to keep the pathway through the Great Rift open. Rogal would also have more success fighting against his traitor brothers as he killed Alfarius and spanked Fulgrim's demonic ass. He all round just doesn't take shit from his fuckhead faithless brothers. So overall, Rogal would be just as positive, if not slightly more so than Guilliman as the returning Primarch. I'm not going to get into the logistics of Sanguinius' return or resurrection, since we literally just saw him beaten to death like a misbehaving dog before his body started getting teabagged by demons. However, if he did come back, hell would have no fury like a returned Golden Angel. Sanguinius was never the most tactically brilliant or logistically god-tier Primarch. Overall, his primary strategy was just to fucking deep strike the enemy's tits off and call it a day, a tactic that would continually work fantastically over the course of Sanguinius' life. Also, we gotta remember that Sanguinius' last memory would have been Horus's big-ass mace crushing his balls, so he'd probably be a bit worked up. Thus, after turbo fucking the armies of Khorne to death and spanking Magnus so hard that his face looked white in comparison to his ass, Sanguinius would strike out into the galaxy. However, he wouldn't be this mindless idiot. He would delegate the logistics to various other brilliant people, purging the High Lords in the process. He would use his foresight to direct him and his forces to exactly where they needed to be, constantly ambushing and intercepting chaotic forces. By this point, Sanguinius would be a little god of war. After all, it was confirmed in the most recent Horus Heresy book that Sanguinius was the most powerful Primarch if you don't include Chaos buffs. He literally beat Horus until Horus went Chaos God mode. Thus, Sanguinius would tear through Chaos, constantly targeting their lords and traitor Primarch brothers. The galaxy would run red with the blood of traitors until every speck of heresy would be annihilated. Also, good luck Leviathan. Imagine Sanguinius against the Nids. He would fucking decimate them. As a side note, the Silent King claimed that he and Sangi were buddies. Could be a lie, but also if true, would definitely help with that whole Necron situation the Imperium has. Although what we saw of Ferrus Manus was a hot-headed idiot who thought he could beat any problem to death with his bare hands, he was universally lauded as one of the most reliable and militarily powerful Primarchs. Horus said that if he had Ferrus by his side, the heresy would have been a breeze, whilst Guilliman named Ferrus as one of his most dependable and powerful Primarch brothers. Thus, a returned Ferrus would actually be quite good for the Imperium, but in an interesting way. Straight up, he would go full engine of war mode, declaring galaxy-wide martial law and massively bolstering arms production, as well as inventing new fucked up weapons to use against chaos. He would then lead his Crusade of Iron, an unstoppable tide of metal and vengeance that would clear Imperium Sanctus and fortify it against the enemy. His interactions with the Necrons would also be interesting, as it would either lead to him embracing the power of his silver necrodermis arms in this time of desperate need, or rejecting them and having them removed, proving the strength of flesh and potentially even unlocking his true potential. Overall, I do think Ferrus could hold the Imperium together to a similar standard as Guilliman. Vulcan's return would be an interesting one. He was never known as the logistical military commander that some of his brothers were, but he was wildly powerful in other ways. First off, you literally cannot beat him, and was able to clap Demon Primarch Magnus in a duel, and secondly, he can build the most fuck-off war crimey shit ever. He used to have a collection of stuff he had built that was so overpowered that he ordered it destroyed by like 5 things. Those 5 things became the artifacts of Vulcan and are extremely powerful in their own right. So imagine if he just came out and built a new collection of shit and handed it out to his commanders. Mega ships, pistols that could one-shot titans, armor that makes you indestructible, a flamethrower that makes you gay in the 3 seconds before you turn to ash. You know, just overpowered shit. Vulcan has a lot of compassion, but don't mistake that for weakness. He would strike out in a mega ship of his own design and bring the wrath of Nocturne upon the traitors. His crusade wouldn't be as impressive as Guilliman's, but it would still be effective in reclaiming Imperium Sanctus. Vulcan would perform a bit better than Russ, especially if he decided to go full Sen mode and create fucking fuck tons of overpowered weapons for the Imperium. However, he would need to hold out until the Lions return to be able to save the Imperium from the Nids and the Necrons. The logistical nightmare of the current setting being too much for our humble blacksmith. And finally, we have Corvus Corax. Low-key, despite Corax being one of the most powerful Primarchs in the setting right now due to him embracing his inner war power, he would probably be one of the most useless of the returned Primarchs. The thing is, the Imperium doesn't need a hectic duelist. It needs someone with the ability to organize it after being smashed into shambles by the opening of the Great Rift. Corvus could always win the battle, but was never best at winning the war. Sure, he would save Terra, and sure, he would be a fucking nightmare on the battlefield, winning any battle he fought upon, but I just can't imagine Corvus reorganizing the Imperium, creating the Indomitus Crusade, and then reclaiming Imperium Sanctus. He was one of the most specialized Primarchs, the master of stealth and hit and runs. The only chance the Imperium would have is if Corvus could delegate the logistics to some brilliant people, build a sizable fleet to reclaim and hold Sanctus, while he personally led special missions to attack key areas, such as taking down Chaos Lords, Chaos Primarchs, or sabotaging an enemy supply point. He literally wouldn't even be part of his own Indomitus Crusade. Corvus would be a fantastic second Primarch to return, G-Man or the Lion dealing with the big picture, while he would systematically strike at and assassinate Chaos Lords, winning wars before they were even started, but he just wouldn't be a good choice for trying to govern the Imperium itself. Still probably a better choice to return than Jagadai, purely due to how much of a beast he would be in his warp form on the battlefield, but definitely not the pick of choice. So overall, the Lion, Rogel, Ferris would be on par with G-Man, Leman, Vulcan and Sanguinius would be a bit less ideal, and then Jagadai and Corvus would have a pretty rough time. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where we have a boatload of Battlemace 40 million hentai, live action nude cosplays, and original stunning Warhammer 40k fan art. Hit the subscribe button, hit the real subscribe button for more loyal content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.